Hey there. So I'm here to give you this week's recap of what happened in the Massachusetts State Senate. It was, in some ways, a busy week, in some ways, not very busy at all. The big news really this week was, of course, the coronavirus and the spread of this pandemic, ending with this weekend, Governor Baker calling for a near shutdown, not a complete shutdown, but a near shutdown of activity in Massachusetts. So public and private schools will be closed for 3 weeks. All restaurants, coffee shops, and bars are required to suspend in-person service through April 5th. They can still do takeout and delivery, however, if they offer like curbside options. So not a complete shutdown, but a near complete shutdown. Also, all public gatherings of 25 people or more. So this includes churches, it includes community centers, libraries, anything like that. We're seeing across the board, we're seeing town halls, libraries, community and government buildings shut down as a result of this. Work is still going on, but remotely. Most companies, most corporations at this point that I'm aware of, are moving to remote work if possible. And even at the government level, Governor Baker said that really the majority of state employees will work from home, that it's really just a skeleton crew and sort of emergency officials related to the coronavirus matter that will continue to come in, but otherwise everyone else will be working from home. So that was obviously the big news out of Massachusetts this last week. We did have some movement in the legislature, though, so I do want to talk about that. So the thing that was new last week was a package for coronavirus. And the intent of this package was to create a reserve to support the Commonwealth's monitoring, treatment, containment, public awareness, and prevention efforts. This bill is obviously important because it gives the government money to be able to slow down the spread of coronavirus, to assist in the treatment for those who are already ill, to continue testing so that we actually know how many people are being affected by this. But one thing to note about this bill is that it doesn't actually offer any additional instructions on how the money is to be used. So it's a pretty open-ended bill. Now, the governor anticipates that a large portion of the money will go to our local communities for first responders and local boards of health to assist them in the work that they're doing. Ultimately, the administration will decide where this money goes based on where the need is. One thing to point out, just as sort of a cautionary, is that there's little to no oversight in this bill. Basically, the state is trusting the administration to wisely allocate the funds. Now, I don't want to go too far into an opinion on this particular video, but I will say, one concern I do have as someone who is running for state senate and has spent a lot of time looking at a lot of the bills that have gone through both the Senate and the House is overall a lack of oversight into how funds are spent. So this is a concern for me, not just with this bill, but with all bills. And I think it's something that we need to continue to monitor. I can understand in this time of uncertainty that there is probably some need to be a little bit more lenient about being too specific up front, but nonetheless, I still think that we need to have layers of oversight built in, and we need to continue to monitor this to ensure that the funds are spent wisely and appropriately. So the bill has passed both chambers and it's been signed by Governor Baker. So this is essentially a done deal. Now, let's talk about what's changed. So in a non-coronavirus update, there is a bill by Governor Baker on recovery coaches. So Governor Baker proposed to create a professional licensing process for recovering coaches, and this is now before the legislature. So a recovering coach, if you're not familiar with this concept, is kind of like a life coach, and it's a person who helps those who are recovering from addiction to make smart choices and healthy decisions. The number one priority for the people that recovery coaches are helping is not picking up a drink or a drug that particular day not acting out their addiction. So it's every single day helping them make wiser choices and avoid taking that drink, taking that drug. So a 15-member recovery coach commission was actually created as part of, there was a sweeping opioid bill signed into law by Governor Baker in 2018. So this bill, one of the things this bill did was create this 15-member recovery coach commission. So the commission has actually been studying and making recommendations concerning creating a board of registration of recovery coaches, similar to as we have for certified professional or certified public accountants, nurses, and so on and so on. And the purpose of this board would be to review the credentials of people moving into this profession. And I do want to note this is an emerging profession. So I think we're still learning a lot about the best ways to regulate this profession. Okay, so why does this matter? Well, the governor's office has actually stated that these recovery coaches, quote, are critically important to our efforts to strengthen the significant reforms we implemented over the last 2 years to fight the opioid epidemic and have proven to significantly help guide an individual's path to treatment and recovery, end quote. So, in some sense, recovery coaches, I know I said it's an emerging profession, but recovery coaches themselves have actually been around for decades, but they started as volunteers. And originally these were folks who had, overcome alcoholism, overcome drug addiction, and just wanted to help others. So they started as volunteers. It's only now recently that it's becoming more of a formal profession. And part of that, the reason for that, is because health officials have actually turned to them, to these recovery coaches, more frequently as the state is continuing to confront this massive wave of opioid addiction. And so they're needing those additional resources. And so now recovery coaches are really becoming more of a professional profession. So this proposal is actually part of a much larger bill called an Act to Improve Healthcare by Investing in Value. The bill was filed last October. It's currently being considered in the State House. It's currently in the Joint Committee on Healthcare Financing. So the specific proposal for recovery coaches, for regulation of recovery coaches, is a provision in the bill, and its requirements are being debated as we speak. Many of our reps, many of our senators are coming out in support of this. Now, one of the recommendations that's currently being discussed in the bill is that recovery coaches should have lived experience as former addicts, but they should be in sustained recovery for at least 2 years before working with patients. So certainly I think we can probably all agree to the value of having a recovery coach be someone who has had this personal experience, but also ensuring that they are in a good enough place to be able to do this difficult work. All right, so the last thing for the weekly update are things to look out for, and this is the plastic bag ban. Now, right now, this is being discussed in Weymouth. This would ban single-use plastic bags at the point of sale. So if you go to the grocery store or to CVS or whatnot, retailers could offer reusable or recyclable paper bags for 10 cents each. The town's health department would ultimately be charged with enforcing this ordinance. So it's possible that town officials will actually wait to see if the state legislature does an overall ban on grocery stores, on restaurants and other retailers from providing these bags to consumers across the state before the town actually takes action locally. More than 120 Massachusetts communities, including 11 here on the South Shore, have banned single-use plastic bags in some form. Within our district, towns that have bag bans, Cohasset, Duxbury, Hingham, Hull, Norwell, and Scituate. So we've already seen this kind of become a widespread movement. And so it's great that Weymouth is talking about it. Things to look out for on this. So the state Senate last November actually passed a bill that would ban all carry-out plastic bags at checkout from retail stores. The bill does require retailers to charge at least 10 cents for each recycled paper bag, 5 cents of which would go back to the community for enforcement of the ban. The State House has not yet taken up this bill. So it was expected to come up in the House this session, but candidly, we now don't know if it will, just given the coronavirus concerns and the fact that the legislator is not able to meet in person. So something to keep your eye on. It'll be interesting to see whether or not towns like Weymouth decide to move forward on this, given the fact that it has not come up in the House yet, or if the House does ultimately try to take this up before they close their session. So I hope this update has been incredibly helpful for you. As always, you can learn more about my campaign for state Senate by going to megwheeler.com. And you can find our weekly updates here every single week by going and just clicking subscribe to this channel so that you get notified when a new one drops.